Okay, so I think I think I'm just gonna ramble here. Yeah, Avatar: The Last Airbender is the greatest show of all time. I I think that's been said a thousand times on every website ever. But man, this show is so good. It's ridiculous how good this show is. Okay, I've watched this show 10 times, and I think it gets obviously it gets better with every rewatch. But what seems to really be my favorite thing about the show is rewatching it with people who haven't watched it before and watching them go through the journey of watching the show. It's so cool. It's just that's like one of my favorite things about this is following along with someone as they start to find their footing in what the show provides. To take it a step further, I am also a really big fan of the entire franchise as a whole, and also a big fan of the lore as it continues to expand. I think the novels are great. Some people don't necessarily care for the comics. I like the comics. I think the comics are cool. In fact, I like even the lesser known side comics. I like the lore that you get from the games. The games are cool. There's a trading card game that was talked about in depth from probably one of the no not probably the avatar of YouTube avatars, Airspeed Prime, brought up one of the coolest pieces of Avatar lore in a video, and he has many videos, but this one was interesting because he brought up a monk by the name of Afiko, who betrayed the Air Nation by giving secrets on how to get to air temples to the Sozin-led Fire Nation. That piece of lore is so amazing because of how well thought out it is in just a little trading card. Just a tiny little trading card, that game that came out while the show was on TV originally. That's just such a ingenious way of storytelling, and I find it interesting because the the original creators, Bryke, they are kind of scattered with the way that they just distribute information sometimes. That trading card game is an example. Another example is the missing episode, quote unquote, that where Aang, between book 2 and book 3, is into the spirit world. Technically, he's actually dead, but while he's there, he's, getting some experienced background on Kyoshi and Kuruk. And during that time, it's a great story. I mean, it's not a finished episode, or I think that might have been for a game. But either way, the point is, what's interesting is that it is just distributed randomly in its lore that's not regularly known from people who just, get into the show and the only thing they're going to know is the show. This franchise is not perfect in that regard from as far as distribution and how scattered all of this cool pieces of lore is, and I find that fascinating because it kind of reflects the imperfection of the characters in this great franchise. The reason why Avatar: The Last Airbender is the greatest show of all time, but even more so, take it a step further, the reason why this franchise is one of the greatest franchises of all time is because every character is flawed. Every character is like a living, breathing person. That's cool. That's really cool. And when you get people to really dig into the show, by all means, I encourage you, get someone to get into the show. It's one of the coolest things in the world. The people who end up, watching the show, they tend to not realize why they like it, and that is it. That's it right there. People don't realize why they like it, and the reason why is because they're starting to find an understanding that they feel connected to these characters in a way that is like they're getting to know a person. And people are flawed. Everyone is flawed. And even in the distribution of the lore, Bryke has all of this scattered stuff. In case some people don't know, there is a random video game that takes place with Korra between books 1 and 2, where she is fighting probably one of the coolest villains ever. Not going to get into the story, you can find it out there. It's a cool story, but man, the lore just expands with that story. She's fighting this person who can't really recall if they were split in half or was trying to save the villain was trying to save his brother, but she's fighting a two-headed monster, and it is a freaking cool story. The villain has a great background. And that's the other thing about this franchise, is that it touches your spirit in such a way where others don't. You could probably say on paper, Star Wars is the greatest franchise of all time. But there's something about the Avatar franchise that touches every corner of the spirit of being a sentient being. I mean that from the standpoint of the humor is through and through humor across the board. And then the aspect of character development, character growth, and feeling for someone as they go through relationships with parents, with siblings, with friends, and the just general camaraderie of connecting with a human being, and also self-growth and understanding that you're going to have to do hard things and change your mind, and then also having to deal with loneliness, Korra, and having to deal with depression and what those internal battles mean. This show, these stories, are able to tap into humanity in a way that is very reflecting of humanity. It's and it's done in a beautiful way, and in a fun way, but also in a tragic way at the same time. Yeah, man, this show is amazing. So anyway, I was saying, I've watched ATLA 10 times. And I have watched Korra 4 times. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and give a couple hot takes. Really, one main hot take. Personally, for me, I feel that season 3 of Legend of Korra is the greatest thus far single season of the entire franchise. I think it is the best single season of the whole franchise. That's hot take number 1. Another one's coming to mind. I think the Kyoshi novels, plural, are possibly the best Avatar story that we've gotten thus far. But part of the reason why it's so good is because of how you get the extension of Avatar Kuruk's story and Avatar Yang Chen's story all in one. I remember the Avatar Kuruk story coming into play in book 2 of Kiyoshi's novel and being floored, because I that was such a great way to depict the most easygoing Avatar. He really wasn't. He was really tough, and he was dealing with a lot. So, but also the way that Kiyoshi becomes the Avatar is just, I think it's possibly the greatest Avatar story that we have thus far. And all that said, the ATLA original story from start to finish, just as a whole, plot from plot point A to plot point Z, is just probably the greatest story ever told, potentially, as far as hitting all those human points of spirituality and humor and relationships. Yeah, this is going to be exciting to see what Avatar Studios comes up with, and I hope it's just as inspired as the way that season 3 of Korra was inspired, the way that books 2 and 3 of ATLA were inspired. I hope it's just as beautiful as that. I don't really have any thoughts on Netflix doing Avatar. I take that back. I have thoughts on Netflix doing Avatar, but I'm also extremely neutral about it, so not quite sure if I'm excited, other than maybe seeing it in live action and then going from there, because I don't really care about retelling something. I want to just, I guess I have more of the break mentality of, okay, hey, let's keep pushing the envelope, let's keep telling new stories. But either way, that's not the point. The point here is, this is a really amazing franchise, and I hope everybody gets a chance to really dig into it. Watch it more than once. Watch the original series more than once. Watch The Legend of Korra more than once. I know The Legend of Korra gets a lot of heat. Personally, I think The Legend of Korra is actually not the better show, but it is really good. It's very good. It's really, really good, actually. Actually, as more time goes on, the more I tend to revisit Legend of Korra than I tend to revisit ATLA. Yeah, season 3 of Korra is, as just a single season, there's nothing better than that. It's amazing. And then also the story of Wan injected into season 2, just great storytelling. Excellent stories, and I personally feel like there's nothing wrong with the way we have this depiction of good and evil, because it actually doesn't seem as Western as people may view it out to be. In fact, what it is actually very Eastern, in the sense that is, Rava lives in Vatu, and Vatu lives in Rava. They're, even if one takes over, the other one will grow until it takes over the other. And there's a piece of one in the other at all times, even if there's an imbalance. They are the representation of yin and yang. They are not the representation of good and evil. They called the lion turtles the ancient ones. And we don't even know what the lion turtles actually are. Are they spirits? Are they physical animals? They, in beginningless time, bent not the elements, but the energy within themselves. And if Rava is calling a lion turtle Ancient One, then the Eastern philosophy that Breik was writing from is truly being reflected in this. And there's actually less of a Western religious standpoint that comes into this show, which makes it so beautiful, because again, Rava and Vatu are not good and evil. They're just a tied together thing representing the balance of yin and yang, yin and yang. So what are the lion turtles? And what's beyond that? To me, the lion turtles kind of represent a force that is not good nor bad. It is simply energy.